the Commonwealth says this was a hit and run. The defense is saying this was a frame job.
Out for the...
Hear ye, the court of Mostly Harmless is officially in session.
Yeah.
Hi, how are ya?
I'm good. Are you going to do the intro? Or is that the intro?
That's the intro.
That's the intro.
We've been introduced. Hey, everybody, welcome to That was the intro.
Okay.
I crafted that intro.
I liked it. You guys, today we are giving our Mostly Harmless take on the persecution, or rather prosecution, depending on what side you are on.
I can't believe
Karen
anyone
Reed.
would be on the other side of this.
There are, it's a case. It's a case. And
sure.
and if you didn't know, if you are new here, this is Mostly Harmless, a commentary podcast with husband and wife dynamic duo, Sarah
And Matt.
Welcome.
Bienvenue.
Welcome.
Shalom. Jumbo.
I am so excited to talk about this case with you, Matt. If you guys don't know, if you couldn't tell by the sound of Matt's cadence of his voice, he is from Boston.
My heraldry.
Yes. You don't drink anymore, but really your Boston accent only really ever came out when you had a couple. So it's been a while since we've had a visit from our good old friend, the Boston accent.
Well, I worked for years, so I didn't sound like a unintelligent ne'er-do-well.
I am not going to comment on that because I have my own issues with my vocal fry, so I'm not gonna comment on the way anyone talks.
No one should.
To each their own. So we're going to be talking today about the case of Karen Reed, the trial of Karen Reed, which is gearing up to go for her second trial because the first trial ended in a hung jury. She is being charged with second-degree murder, and then there's some lesser charges that she's also being charged with, like driving under the influence, leaving the scene of an accident, things like that. Mm-hmm. But the big charge is second-degree murder, which carries intent. The details of the case are there was this blizzard in January of 2022, at the end of January of 2022. This Boston police officer, everyone's drinking.
Yep.
Cops included.
Absolutely.
As one does.
Sure,
in
there
Boston.
were underage drinkers there as well.
At the party, but not at this bar.
Mm-hmm,
so.
Oh, there were definitely some at the bar.
Again,
Allegedly.
I'm going based off of the expertise of someone from was it a townie? Are you called townies?
Yep.
Yeah. So.
I'm not called a townie.
There's townies and then there's southies or southie.
Southie is a place.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Southie's a place.
Sorry.
That's not.
Okay.
Southesians.
Okay. So there's a couple law enforcement departments that come into play here. There's Canton PD. There's the Massachusetts State Police. There's also the Boston Police Department. So the victim in this case is Officer John O Keefe. He is, or was, a Boston police officer. He was found dead after a night of drinking on the front in a blizzard.
I would classify the night as more than a night of drinking, a night of debaucherous drinking. Because didn't they go from like place to place to place, getting hammered and driving and getting hammered?
And these people are in their 40s.
And they're law enforcement.
And their parents. I have so much opinion about all of this, but anyways, Officer John O Keefe was found near death. He at 6 o'clock in the morning on the front lawn of a fellow Boston police officer's house. This Boston police officer is Brian Albert. He was inside his home at the time that John was found by his girlfriend, Karen Reed. He doesn't come out ever out of his house.
I was going to say, yeah.
Try to be like, what's going on? What's going on my front lawn? Do you guys need a hand? Because I am a first responder. No, none of that happens. So John is taken to the hospital where he is later pronounced dead. His cause of death is blunt force trauma to the head and hypothermia.
Yep.
What happened to John O'Keefe?
That is the question.
The Commonwealth of Massachusetts says Karen backed into him going 24 miles an hour, caused him to lose his balance, fall, hit his head. There he laid for several hours until she comes back the next morning, finds him in real bad shape, and that's what happened. Is she caused the accident that caused his death.
Well, and let's talk about that for a minute, because supposedly she backed into him and cracked her taillight on him, right? That's how the taillight supposedly got broke.
That is what the Commonwealth is saying, yes.
I don't know if any of you are familiar with the plastic plexiglass that is used to make taillights and stuff like that. It's not glass, so it's not something that would just shatter. At 20 miles an hour hitting a soft human being, it is... What I'm going to say is quite unlikely, as I've hit buildings and not shattered taillights before. Quite unlikely that a human being is going to crack a taillight, let alone what can only be described as an explosion of taillight shrapnel, because I believe they came across something to the effect of 60 plus pieces of taillight.
Like 40 something pieces. So we will get there because the Commonwealth says this was a hit and run. The defense is saying this was a frame job, that something happened to John inside the Albert's residence, and that all of this is the cover up, and they're just pointing the finger at Karen Reed.
Well, something is stanky in this situation.
Here's the thing. Objectively speaking, this was a horrible police investigation. Now, Matt, I want to ask you, because there's been a lot of criticisms of this investigation. When they find John O'Keefe, it is windy and snowing, like actively snowing. The weather is terrible. I don't know, what is your experience in Boston when it's snowing? If something were to happen, because you lived in Boston until you were in your mid-20s, what is the protocol? Would it be standard for things to not go standard protocol with police investigations?
Not that I am a member of the police force, but... No, I mean, the thing is, you're in an environment that is regularly chaotic. It is part of your job to learn how to locate things in a snow blind. Like when it's so snowy that it's called, it's a whiteout that you can't see because there's a wall of snow in front of you. And that's how hard it is, which is regular. Multiple times a year this happens. The police don't just go on vacation when the snow starts falling. Okay. It takes a modicum of extra. Yeah, but what you would likely do in that situation, instead of sit around, hold your dick in your hand, waiting for the weather to clear up, which in New England could take anywhere from an hour to 6 weeks, would be to set up a canvas and tent so that the area is separated and not being continued to be precipitated upon. And that's part of your training. That is the same as if you were in an arid desert environment and the police were like, oh, well, it's hot, I'm not going to work today. Or if you're in a tropical environment and it rains like it does in Florida 3-4 days a week. Your training has a lot to do with how, and it is in different biomes, you're going to have different ways that you have to deal with things, but it doesn't just give you a pass to be like, oh, well, it's snowing, so I guess we'll never know who murdered this person. And guess what? Murders happen quite a bit in Boston in the snow.
Okay, so here's a couple facts of the case. So responding officers start their investigation. The responding department is the Canton PD. Well, Brian Albert's brother, Kevin, is a Canton police officer. So very early on in this investigation, they conflicted out. They said, hey, there might be an appearance of bias, so we're going to pass this investigation off to a different agency. It ends up, because the other thing that was complicated is they show up on scene. John is not declared dead until he gets to the hospital. Well, the Massachusetts State Police, which is ultimately the agency that investigates this homicide, because Cam PD apparently doesn't investigate homicides. So the Massachusetts State Police would have been called in anyways. But when Cam PD is trying to secure the scene, they're securing blood evidence in red Solo cups. Yeah. And the excuse at trial for that is because they don't usually investigate homicides. So evidence was collected, blood evidence was collected in red Solo cups, which was then put into a Stop and Shop bag. No, apparently, and I'm not too familiar with police procedure, but there is something called a chain of custody. Yeah. Anytime you collect evidence and it exchanges hands for someone to examine or to look at, you're supposed to log everything in, log everything out.
So chain of custody in simplest terms as possible is if I gave Sarah the shit that I just collected, I have to note down that it was given to Sarah. If Sarah gives it right back to me, we have to note down that I gave it to Sarah, Sarah gave it back to me, I gave it to Bob, who gave it to Larry, who gave it to someone who gave it back. Every time that leaves your hand, it has to be noted down. It's pretty standard.
There's no chain of custody for any of this evidence. It begs the question, so if you buy into the defense theory wholeheartedly, hook, line, and sinker, which I do not, it would be that this is all just a vast, every single person has to be in on it, from the first responders that come to the scene to the police officers that were collecting evidence. You would have to believe that every single person is wanting Karen Reed to go down for a crime she didn't commit. I don't necessarily believe that, but when you have this evidence that a police officer dies on another police officer's front lawn, and the very basics of an investigation are not done, it does make you go, huh.
Yeah.
Huh.
Well, you get a bunch of, broken down ex-high school football players, join the police force, never really did anything. It's not always the best and brightest that gets on there. And don't get me wrong, I am a massive supporter of the police. I have always been on the police's side for most things. There are plenty of real shitty people out there who become cops, just like there's shitty people out there who become anything. There's always going to be shitty. And for instance, my aunt's ex-husband is a shitbag state trooper from Massachusetts.
I didn't know if you wanted to talk about that or not, but you have
shit,
personal.
And it's a big thing that they all believe that, these guys get up there and then all of a sudden they are untouchable, holier than thou, get away with murder kind of nonsense. You can do no wrong because I'm a police officer. And you get a lot of God complex people like that.
That's really interesting because we're going to talk about Michael Proctor, who was the lead investigator, newly fired.
Yeah, what a fuckhole that guy was.
Former Massachusetts State Trooper Michael Proctor.
Yeah, just the we'll get into it and we'll touch upon it, but just the way that he would text his friends. First of all, inappropriate text about an active investigation, which you shouldn't be texting in the first place, and then saying shit like you're a 15-year-old boy. And it's just like, what a shitbag. And the fact that this guy's just like, I said it. Yeah, I don't know why.
Yeah. So here's a couple things, because obviously this isn't going to be like a fact podcast episode where we give you all the details of the case. This is just our opinion on the case. So I will leave links. Rotten Mango did a really good breakdown. I personally have been heavily invested in following the trial. I watch Emily D. Baker for gavel to gavel coverage. Also, there's Lawyer who does like 1 hour summations of each day of trial or when there's new motions filed. Both of those are excellent resources. But unfortunately, because I just, it would take me so long to just compile all the facts of the case. Just do your research and then come watch this.
Why let the facts get in the way of a good story? Right?
The prosecution certainly is it. Yeah. Here's the thing. I don't believe the investigation was so shoddy. I don't believe we will ever know what really happened.
I'm surprised that not only did Michael Proctor just lose his job 2 days ago, from the time of this recording, but I'm surprised that nobody else has lost their job. Like any of those people who were collecting evidence, any of the people that were responding to this douchebag's text like a 15, when you're a law enforcement officer, you are absolutely, and you should absolutely be held to a higher fucking standard than the people that you are around. So if you get into a traffic violation, it should be held twice as hard as if you run a red light. It's worse if a civilian runs a red light. Like if you were palling around with the bros, just being a big deal, like, oh yeah, look at this guy, like, the way that he was texting was so fucking juvenile. And the fact that is a snippet of this person's life, which means that is a small example of the larger problem.
The sad thing is that now, first of all, Michael Proctor has clearly become the fall guy for this investigation. Hank Brennan, who has been brought in, he's typically a defense attorney, but he's been brought in as a special prosecutor. And it's really funny because he constantly is inadvertently referencing the Commonwealth or the government when he is the government. In this instance, he actually was Whitey Bulger's defense attorney.
A friend of the community, that Whitey Bulger.
But so it's interesting. He is, in my opinion, a real big asshole. I think he intentionally misrepresents fact. He doesn't know the fact. I think I know more of the facts of the case than he does. And he is, in my opinion, not a well-intentioned litigator. But I mean, if you could probably say that about a lot of lawyers.
You could sum up this entire case as a perfect storm of fuck-ups. Like,
oh, sure.
From start to finish. And I will absolutely lean into the coincidence of it all. I don't think every step of fucking up in this case is directly related to just frame this woman and make sure it's a big conspiracy. I just think it's a bunch of unrelated idiots all failing to do their jobs, because probably half of these people, Sarah, have never had to handle evidence in their fucking lives. You know what I mean?
But what, you mean the cops?
Yeah. Half of these
cops have not had to handle evidence?
Just because you're a cop doesn't mean that you're first of all, you're not a detective. These beat cops could have just been given tickets and writing off things.
So yeah,
you know
the
what
other
I mean?
thing was
I'm not saying that's an excuse.
They were using a snow blower.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying these are a bunch of people who are probably not even like this. Could have. I'm a big fan of The Rookie. It's a good show. So in The Rookie, you're seeing obviously rookie cops. They make all kinds of mistakes. You don't just start off knowing how to do everything. Yeah, you learn in the police academy what to do, but some people don't ever make it past beat cop. And beat cop is a gopher. Beat cop is the PA of cops like, okay, we need you to stand the line. You got to keep this crowd back here. Go stand next to this evidence and don't leave for 18 hours. That's your job for the whole day. That's what the rookies and what the, so like you can not be a rookie and still just have never been good enough to move past I believe it's called a P2 is when you move up from being a rookie. And so it wouldn't surprise me if some of these people have just been like riding that bench for a long time, and then they were the people that were called out to do it.
Well, so here's the thing though. A lot of the players in this case are connected to another case, this murder of Sandra Birchmore. She was murdered.
Or you're going to say Sandra Bullock. I'm like, oh my God.
She's, a Stoughton, is it Stoughton?
Yep, Stoughton.
A Stoughton police officer is...
Not to be confused with Staunton, which is another one.
Jesus Christ. Anyways, the towns in Massachusetts. But he's currently in jail, charged with her murder. It was originally set up to look like a suicide. It was deemed a suicide at first. A lot of the investigators in that case, you see their names come up in this case. So there's a lot of fuckery afoot in Massachusetts law enforcement.
I am fully in support of police retraining, like get rid of shitty cops. Like I also think that there is, in a lot of instances, a lot less now, but going back 10, 15 years, a lot of second, third, fifth, 10th chances given to police officers. And
it's like priests. Are they just being moved around to different posts, because initially, like 5 minutes after this mistrial or this hung jury in the Karen Reed in her first trial, Michael Proctor gets relieved of duty, but he doesn't get fired immediately. He just gets transferred.
Yeah, that was over a year ago.
Over a year ago. Yeah. Or about a year ago, because we're coming up on...
Well, and then that falls into out of sight, out of mind. We transfer them somewhere else. We don't have to worry about it. It's their problem now. And that is a mindset that I'm hoping, especially with the intense scrutiny on police in the last few years, which is very well warranted. That is the kind of stuff that that you should not be given multiple chances. Like, if I fuck up making a hydraulic hose for somebody, that's it. No one's life is in my hands. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not upholding justice and the American way and all that stuff. I'm like, if you fail as a police officer at the basic level, the base level of what you have to do, which is basically just be a decent person and make sure people aren't doing bad shit, then you are not cut out to be a police officer. I'm sorry. And maybe that's the way. Maybe they're keeping people because not a lot of people are going in droves to become police officers, but that's not a reason to keep shitty officers around.
This is just my personal opinion, as I take in just the facts of what we know, where his Apple Watch data comes into play, where his phone is connecting Wi-Fi, this and blah, blah, blah. What I personally believe happened is some sort of tragic accident. I think everybody was drunk.
Oh, yeah.
I think because the people in the house say that he never came, that he never made it into the house. But the defense is saying that he went into the house, got beat up, and then they planted him on the front lawn. Which, I mean, if you're the Commonwealth and you're like that, also... Like, why would you plant the body right there on your front lawn, right?
No one will believe it's us if it's on our front lawn.
I mean, I can appreciate that argument that wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. What I personally believe happened is some sort of accident where John O'Keefe falls, hits his head, and then everyone's a bunch of drunk assholes, and they just fucking leave him there.
Do you know how many times over the years that I've been at places we've all been getting wasted and some dude just passes out and you just that fucking asshole. Like, I've never left anyone left anyone to die in the snow. Yeah. But like, everyone's drunk. You become pure ego when you're drunk. You don't care about other people.
Yeah. So that's what I personally believe happened. And then I think Karen Reed shows up at 6:00 in the morning, flipping out. And I think they seized
A hysterical woman.
I think that they seized that opportunity to say, hey, we can pin this on her. The fact of the matter is the FBI was called in to investigate the investigation, but we don't really know much about the investigation. It's closed now. No charges were filed.
It's unlikely we're going to get all the
But
information
we don't know
from
what
that.
they were investigating. We don't know the target of the investigation. But what we do know is they hired this company called ARCA to try to recreate the accident the way the Commonwealth said it happened, and to see, does that scientifically make sense? And these ARCA scientists said that John O'Keefe's injuries were inconsistent with the Commonwealth's theory of what happened and with the damage to Karen Reed's vehicle. So what I'm left with that is I am confident that what the Commonwealth says happened did not in fact happen.
Well, and so am I. And I'm not a scientist, but that's what I said.
No, so I do not believe that Karen Reed's Lexus caused the death of John O'Keefe. Therefore, I do not believe Karen Reed should be on trial for a second time for murder. This is where we're at. The Commonwealth is no longer in the pursuit of justice in this case.
No,
they
they're
are
looking
in the
for
pursuit of winning.
Yep.
And that is horrific to witness as a bystander. If I was a tax-paying citizen of Canton or of Massachusetts, I would be up in
This is
arms.
a huge waste of tax dollars.
That this is going a second time. There is no. I watch all these lawyers, and again, nobody knows for certain. We don't have it on video what happened to John O'Keefe at the moment that he lost his life.
This is wild because there are cameras fucking everywhere. Like I have my entire front of them and the back of my house. You wouldn't be able to do anything without me knowing about it.
The neighbors across the street from the Alberts.
Yeah, they had a Ring doorbell, right?
They had a Ring doorbell. Cop too. Mm-hmm. No pertinent information was found on that Ring doorbell. Funnily enough.
Yep.
I'm just enough of a person who buys into a good conspiracy theory to look. Okay. When I first heard of this case and I first got sucked in and I heard that the defense was that they were being framed, I was like, okay. I'm like, solid, Hail Mary defense, might as well fling whatever at the wall and see what sticks. But then you start hearing the facts of this case, the no chain of custody with the evidence logs, evidence being collected in solo cups being left. That not only was the evidence collected in solo cups, but then it wasn't even put into like the evidence locker or whatever. It was left out by her car for like days. The lead investigator, Michael Proctor, had John O'Keefe's clothes for like a month and a half before they were even tested for anything. Why?
Because it's a boys' club, baby.
But so I really believe that Michael Proctor was guided. Like, hey, don't look at us, because no investigating officer, the lead investigator, anyways, never went into the Alberts residence. If someone dies on someone's front lawn, like if someone died on our front lawn, I would think that when police come, they would be like, yo, what's up? Like, why did this person die on your front lawn? Did you know anything about it? Can we take a look around? Like, especially if we were like, oh yeah, that's Bob. That's my friend Bob. Like, Bob, what are you doing out there? Yeah. Like, they would be like, hey, and Bob was supposed to come over the night before, but he, quote, never made it in the house. Hey, mind if we look around?
Yeah.
That would make sense. That would happen. I firmly believe that would happen to any other citizen, but it didn't happen in this case because the homeowner was a Boston cop. And the thing that sucks is that the victim was also a Boston cop. And unfortunately, I don't think justice is ever going to happen for this man.
Well, I'll say Trooper Proctor being fired is probably some form of justice because, I mean, he just does not represent the values that I would say a police officer should uphold. I don't feel bad for him. And the victim.
But I feel bad that he is being held up as the fall guy when I think there's a lot of bad apples.
No, you go through all this stuff and there's just no solid evidence. And there's no beyond a shadow of a doubt, which I think people tend to forget in these highly publicized cases. It's not just, I think he did it. It's not, I believe he did it. It's not, I'm 50-50. You have to believe beyond a shadow of a doubt. It has to be proven beyond a shadow of a doubt.
The Commonwealth has to prove
and
she did it.
They're not proving it. And they
can't.
Yeah. So first of all, let's stop wasting fucking money. This is like, I cannot believe the amount of people who scream about wasted tax dollars and we're not doing anything about these unnecessary cases. Same thing as that douchebag that faked his own death that we talked about in one of our
Ryan Borgward.
Like, do I want something to happen to him? I don't care. I don't want you to spend any more money on this.
Let karma happen to him.
If you had your chance to do this case, it ended in a mistrial. Is that what happened?
Yeah.
And in that, we found out that she was going to be found not guilty. The mistrial re-racked everything.
So there were 3 charges. The first charge was the second-degree murder, and the third charge, I forget what, I think it was like driving under the influence or something like that, or leaving the scene of a crime. And I think the second charge was like vehicular manslaughter or something like that. The first and third charge, multiple jurors have come out and said they were unanimous, not guilty. It was the second charge that they were split on.
And the mistrial re-racked it all, giving us the ability to retry this case, which, as we continue, they already pleaded their case. So one would think, okay, well, you're just going to go through this again. Instead of having a mistrial, you're going to be not guilty, right? That's how it would be. Assuming, obviously, there are different jurors in this situation.
Yeah.
But you failed to plead your case properly. If you'd done it correctly, if it was even like a shred of she was absolute, like maybe she's guilty, then the jurors would not have been, we were unanimous in the fact that this was not going to happen. But since there was a mistrial, none of that matters. The whole trial gets thrown out and we're going to retry it again. Was a huge fucking waste of money because at that point I'm looking at this being like, she's not guilty of this, is how I feel.
The multiple lawyers that I watch on YouTube, Emily D. Baker is a former Los Angeles district attorney. Lawyer, Peter Tragos, he practices here in Florida. He, I think at one point was a prosecutor, but he works as a personal injury defense attorney now. So you get kind of like different perspectives with how these people have practiced law historically. Both of them say that there is not enough factual evidence in the case to even bring the prosecution of Karen Read.
And this is why it seems like they are grasping at straws. And this comes down to me, if you all are familiar with the movie National Treasure. There's a line in that movie. Excellent movie.
Yeah.
There's a line in that movie at the end where the FBI sits down with Gates, Nicolas Cage's character, after they discover the treasure and everything's kind of settled. And this is where it is. All this stuff happened. Well, someone's got to go to jail. Someone has to go to jail.
What they're doing
and then it's like, but wait. I understand that things in the situation, there were extenuating, so sure, this, that, and the other thing. But here's all the good that happened and here's all the shit that happened. I think it outweighs. Like in that movie, that's how it was. In real life, I feel like they lived this. Someone needs to go to jail. And in all these cop shows and lawyer dramas, they always say, oh, the DA wants somebody for this. They need somebody for this. And it's like necessity makes people rush to do things. Rushing to do things is going to get people forced into situations in which either they get wrongfully convicted or wrongfully exonerated. If you are unable to take the appropriate amount of time because they want this rushed. They want this. This could still be going on in the first trial, but they're trying to get this done. They want to sweep it under the rug. They failed to do it the first time. They're shoehorning in a second trial, and we're going to be like, oh, maybe if we roll the dice again, we won't come up on snake eyes. We'll get double sevens or we'll get double sevens on it. That doesn't make any sense. Dice don't have sevens on them.
Oh. I was like, why doesn't that make sense?
7 and 11 is what you want for craps. You want to snake eyes is the worst thing you can get. It kills off the whole thing. So yeah, you want to re-roll, and if you get snake eyes, you lose. You get 7.
What's a snake eye?
Two ones. Snake eyes. It's fine. This woman.
I play solitaire.
Waste. But so, and that's the thing. We rush. We have to. Oh, they want this. Someone wants it. Someone's got to go to jail. Well, that's not how justice works. Yes, someone who should go to jail should go to jail. That's true. That's logical progression, right? But, we got to get somebody for this. We got to okay, we don't have to get somebody for this.
Right.
And that's the problem. And someone has to go.
And that's what's horrifying to me and has made me really lose faith in the judicial system in this country. And certainly in Massachusetts, because it makes me think like we really should be looking at
a lot of cases that could probably have a second look taken at them.
Exactly. And like, I know that I think statistically 1 to 2% of the prison population is innocent. That's not a high number, but
I don't think that's an acceptable amount.
Right, exactly. Any number is too much. We should not be putting innocent people in jail. God forbid, killing innocent people, which that has happened.
Yep. I don't have any examples, but
no, but like, and that's why a lot of people who are anti-death penalty, that is a really strong argument for not doing the death penalty, because if you can't say for certain that someone did the thing that you're saying that they need to die for, then they should not be dying. And then really nobody should be dying then.
And that's the thing. So yeah, I support the death penalty only in the never have been achieved circumstance, really, of absolute guilt.
You can put up like the most horrible Charles Manson or some baby killer, some real gross sicko.
Caught in the act, plenty of trophies.
And we could say, that dude, if we're going to kill anyone, it should be that guy. But then you have someone who gets sentenced to death and it's real unclear if they're guilty or not. And you kind of think maybe they're probably not guilty, or maybe you firmly believe that they're not guilty and they get the death penalty anyways. It's like, ugh.
Yeah. Like premeditated murder.
Yeah.
Death penalty. Proven. Premeditated murder. Like if you take the time out of your life to plot, scheme, and plan someone else's demise, you deserve to lose your life rights.
Your life rights.
Yes, yeah. Honest to God, and I believe that wholeheartedly. If you take someone else's life, you do not deserve to have yours. That's the trade-off, in my opinion. Great, you think you got away with it. Look, we found your notebook, your handwriting. We found a recording of you saying, I can't wait to do this. This is me and my sound mind and able body. Like, that's beyond a shadow.
But
it's so hard to prove that.
Exactly. You have to apply that standard the whole way across. And because you can't know for certain in 100% of the cases where you kill someone, then unfortunately, I believe in 0% of the cases should we be killing someone.
and that's the thing. In a vacuum, it makes sense, but it doesn't. And in a world with no gray areas, it makes sense. But it's not all black and white. It's not. And even videos, and especially as technology is getting better and better, these deep fakes that you see, there's like so much that can be done to where in the 50s you saw a video and that was law. That was like, I saw this black and white camera, see, and he's killing him, murder him on there. And I saw you, like, that was it. Like, there was no, yes, you could still tamper with stuff back in the day, but it wasn't as bad as being able to create full realistic fakes of things, which happen now. So, yeah, I mean, if you can absolutely prove beyond a shadow of a doubt someone is guilty of heinous things, then kill him. But other than that, it really does beg the question that if you can't be certain, then you cannot murder her. Like, right. Because then that becomes a murder.
Let's say Karen Reed was being charged with first-degree murder. And what if she was eligible for the death penalty? I don't think that they have that in Massachusetts, but...
Yeah, I don't think so.
And we're all sitting here pretty confident that she's factually innocent. God forbid, but the Commonwealth, the prosecution seems hell-bent on getting a conviction one way or another. It really makes me concerned about how many other people are in jail that have just been completely railroaded.
And it just puts it in a shitty spot of, like, in a perfect world, defense attorneys and prosecution would work together to make sure that everything's, you know what I mean?
Only the guilty bad guys go to jail.
Well, look, I'm going to defend this guy because here's this. And yeah, maybe he did it, but my defense is built to not get him off and exonerated. It's to get him a fair sentence. That's what a defense attorney in a caught red-handed situation is for. They're not... And it's not the way it is, because they're trying to come up with let's get a mistrial. They didn't read you your rights. Let's get you off, because they're trying to get them off. That's not what it is. Your defense attorney in a situation where you were caught red-handed doing something illegally and there's no, it's to get you a fair sentence. Okay, you robbed a store. You shouldn't go to jail for the rest of your fucking life for robbing a store, right? You know what I mean? That's what your attorney in that situation is for. So in a perfect world, the prosecution is trying to get the appropriate punishment for someone who was proven to commit a crime.
Yeah.
In our world, the prosecution is trying to get the maximum sentence for a person who may or may not have done it, but if their defense attorney is not a highly paid enough defense attorney and they're just somebody who's there putting in their 9 to 5, they might go to jail for way fucking longer. Or you get the defense attorneys that tell the client to take the deal, because even if you didn't do it, you won't be able to prove it in court. And in court, you're going to get you're going to go to jail for this much. So just take the 10 years. And you know what I mean? And that's where, we're going to get him, even though we don't know he did it. We're going to get the maximum sentence. So that just is something that should change, but it probably never will. You know, it's not like our justice system has gotten better over the years. It's just gotten more complicated.
Yeah. My last question, Matt, because you're from Massachusetts, you're from pretty close by to where this took place. What are the odds? Because they're going to start impaneling a new jury on April 1st, and they anticipate
Or are they? Because it's April Fool's Day. What if that's the big joke?
They anticipate that it's going to take a while because they're calling...
to eliminate bias.
Oh, yeah. So my question is, knowing like any high-profile cases that occurred when you lived in Massachusetts, what are the odds that they will be able to find 12 people that... ideally have never heard of this case?
It'll be easy, because
really?
I wouldn't have fucking known about this case if it was happening. I wouldn't have known about this case if you weren't listening to it every day at the shop. Well, you know what I mean? Like that's the thing. A townie's got a townie, and they don't really give a shit about much outside of a 5-mile radius of them. If you're going to hear about a murder, like it really, there's a lot of crime everywhere, but there's a lot of shit happening in Boston where it's just like, oh, that sucks. Now let's go back, because no one really cares about stuff like that. Like, great, it's an anecdotal story we could chit chat about, but most of the time they're not watching the case. Like, if you got nothing better to do, sure, but it is probably far more prominent for people outside of the city than it is for the people who are in the surrounding areas, because nobody really gives a shit about
that.
Stuff
Was
like
my
that.
question. So
And there are plenty of shit that happened in Boston that you would know more about than I would, because if it didn't happen next door to me, I had better things to think about. Young people are only doing what they want to do, and then maybe some oldsters are watching court TV and watching all that shit. But most of the people are just kind of doing their shit, just like anywhere else. Like, if you're not someone who is versed in watching various lawyerings and such like that, then it's not gonna really stick with you. Hell, I mean, it could have been something I could have heard about, and then I get called for jury duty, and I probably wouldn't even remember what the fuck was going on. Like, it's a drop in the bucket of a focus point, in my opinion. Really, it's only prominent because you've been paying attention to it. You brought it to my mom's attention, who's from Boston. Like, she didn't even really know anything about it until you talked to her about it.
But your sister knows about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, but that's the thing. There's people who are going to know about it. There's going to be at least 10 times the amount of people that don't give a shit about it than there are of the people who care about it.
Okay, well, hopefully we'll find those 12
Because, like, unlike the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial, which is, like, it's really hard to find someone who doesn't know shit about this, in this one, it's just going to be finding people who don't, especially look in Western Mass. It's a big fucking cesspool of nonsense people out in Western Mass. They don't leave. Western Mass is its own state. No one really cares about that.
I don't know.
Yeah, you get a bunch of people out from Western Mass and they won't know anything about anything.
I am surprised that they haven't tried to move the trial to a different...
The Commonwealth will not move the trial.
Yeah.
That it will stay in that poorly ventilated, shitty AC.
I'm just surprised that I don't think the defense has filed a motion for to move it, but
they're not going to move the trial. It's going to take place in Boston because it's steeped in the city, in the local law enforcement. Like, the only people who are going to matter in this situation are the jurors, and like I said, there is going to be more than a few local dudes that don't even know anything about this because they couldn't care less. It's like, Karen Reed, who's that? Like, I wouldn't surprise me if they wouldn't be able to find it pretty quickly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But it's not that. I don't think it's that, like, part of the zeitgeist. Right.
Okay. Well, that's our thoughts on Karen Reed.
Yep.
Lots of corruption. Lots of shoddy investigation.
Yeah, everyone who was a participant in the investigation should be investigated themselves, and that's tax money I am happy to spend. I do not want, not that my tax dollars are financing this investigation, probably a few of them are, but I don't want to be wasting money just we need to get someone. We need to get someone. Let's try this person who, not only in the court of public opinion, which does not matter, in the jurors on a previous case was basically going to let her go before the trial was declared a mistrial. Let's do it again in hopes that we could get her, because we're going to get her. Let's not search any other possible avenues. No. Let's double down on this, even though there's very few shreds of evidence that are going to make this a 100% slam dunk.
Well, the clincher for me has really been these ARCA scientists that have said that John O'Keefe's injuries are not consistent with the damage to Karen Reed's car. So for me, that's all I need to know to be confident that she did not cause his death. I don't know what happened to John O'Keefe. I don't know if he ever went into the house. I don't know if he just slipped and fell and this is all a tragic accident.
I think he just passed out in the snow.
He has a bunch of scrapes and stuff and cuts on one of his arms, and they really look like dog bites. The Alberts had a German Shepherd at the time that they rehomed shortly thereafter. I don't necessarily think that John was attacked by that dog specifically, but could he have been laying out in the snow and had a been attacked by an animal? I don't know.
There are coyotes all over that area. So,
okay, so
a dog and a coyote are very similar.
So the thing is what the Commonwealth is trying to make happen, I just don't think makes any sense. And therefore, I don't think that Karen Reed should have been brought. The prosecution should not have come this far. Certainly not second-degree murder. You want to charge her with, you think that she did a DUI, vehicular manslaughter, something like
Fleeing
that.
the scene,
Fleeing
whatever.
the scene.
Slap those wrists all you want.
Murder requires intent, and I just don't think that that's there. But we will see how the second trial plays out. The family of John O'Keefe is very confident that Karen Reed is guilty. Unfortunately, I think part of what plays into that is I think deep down inside that they know if not her, no one's ever going to be brought up on charges for his death. So this is their one and only shot at someone being held responsible for his death. So on the one hand, like I understand, especially where the mom is coming from, that okay, the prosecution is telling me it's her. And if it's not her, we've expended all this time and energy and resources into making it be her, that if it's not her, it's not going to be anybody else. And then his death is going to go unsolved, no justice.
But we shall see.
Yeah.
We got to wrap up.
Yes.
We got to get going. Everyone, check us out on all the social medias. Do mostly no harm. Head on over to www.level42studios.com. I have just updated the show's page. So now not only, you used to only be able to watch the most recent video. Now I have it so that for all three shows that we run, the Reality Squad show, Sarah Spills, and this show, Mostly Harmless, you can watch all the videos, are all hosted on the website. You can actually click through and listen to the podcast from the website directly as well. So that's all new stuff that I've been updated. And I check things out there from time to time. I change things around. So head on over to the contact page. We did get a form submission. We will be discussing in one of our next episodes Octomom, I believe it was.
I'm really excited about because I have a tangential I saw, because the Octomom story, well, not Nadia Suleiman or whatever her name is. So. She's from Orange County, and that story, she gave birth when I was in college. I went to Cal State Fullerton, which is also in Orange County. I saw her shortly after she gave birth to the octuplets at a movie theater.
There you go.
So
we'll talk about that one in one of our coming episodes.
Yeah.
We will revisit this topic if there is more to speak on as with any of our other ones. But that's all we got for today. We got to wrap up. We got to go. We got pets to feed. We got kids to wake up. And we got other kids to put back down. Who knows? We got a lot going on here. Yeah. So we got to go. I will talk to you guys another time.
All right, you guys. Have a good one. Bye.